Do you know what your self-sabotaging patterns, habits, and behaviors look like? Now, if you stick around, I'm going to share with you a concept that revolutionized the way that I saw self-sabotage. And if you're somebody who's had lots of opportunities in your life, yet you feel that you've cannibalized them, you've got in your own way, you perhaps stopped yourself from moving forwards, this session is going to be so helpful for you because you'll be able to spot and label how self-sabotage might be showing up for you. I'm going to talk about it in the context of going 10x because in my 10x steps, one of the first steps is vision. You might have an amazing vision. You might know exactly where you want to get to, but the second step is obstacles. It's spotting and labeling obstacles that could get in your way. And the way that obstacles show up, they could be internal, which we're going to talk about today, which is your inner enemy, your part X, your self-sabotaging thinking, ways of being. That's what we're going to talk about today. Or they could be external. It could be cash flow. It could be where your geographic location is. It could be your the amount of time you have to implement your steps. Obviously, what I truly believe is everything is a manifestation of inner obstacles, but we're going to look at the inner obstacles that stop you from going 10x. And my belief is that when we get really, really clear on the obstacles and we remove the frictions from the 10x process, it allows you to get into forward momentum. And why is this so important for someone like you who wants to lead, who wants to live in a way where you're growing exponentially? Well, think about this. If we can create massive momentum, we smash through obstacles way easier. And when we can smash through obstacles easier, it seems like we're on a roll. And you probably felt this kind of momentum in your work or your life before where you're like, nothing can get in your way. You just smash through decisions. You make decisions like that. If there's an obstacle or a problem, maybe it's a hard conversation, you're like, right, I need to have this because it's going to slow me down. And when we find that forward motion, that momentum, it feels like we're unstoppable. And selfishly, I want you to walk away from this session today knowing how to remove these frictions from this self-sabotaging part of you. Now, when I was looking to develop myself psychologically, I reached out to some of the big names in the psychological, wellness community. I didn't just go to anyone, I went to the top. Now, if you type in on Netflix, Stutz, S-T-U-T-Z, there's a guy called Phil Stutz. He's one of the most well-known psychotherapists in Hollywood. He works with like Jay-Z, Jeff Bezos, Gwyneth Paltrow, the who's who of the Hollywood world and business. And I reached out to his team at the Tools Book and I said, hey, listen, I've got a group that I would love you to come and share some stuff with. And he didn't reach out personally, but his co-author, Barry Michaels, who's equally as famous, he's been on Dr. Oz. If you type in Barry Michaels and there's tools, you'll see him stuff all over the internet. He's taught at Google. Barry reached out to me and then we got on a conversation. We had a call and he agreed to come and spend some time with me. And what was amazing is that I enrolled to work with Kristen Sargent, his co-coach, for the remaining 2 years. Like on and off, I've worked with Kristen and I just had a truly transformational experience understanding self-sabotage and there's tools that we can use to overcome self-sabotage. So I've learned from the best. And why is this important? Because what they teach in the tools work is that what there is a force, a destructive force within all of us. And especially if you're a leader or if you've got a big force for growth, you're going to have an equal and opposing force for destruction. So think about this. If you're somebody who's got big goals, big dreams, you want to do big things in the world, you're going to be met by an equal and opposing force, almost like a judo session. You've met your opponent. And the only way that you're going to move forward in your life is to become stronger than that resistant force, which is your inner saboteur. Hopefully you're staying with me right now, right? And what we use what's called the tools to overcome part X, the inner saboteur, your inner enemy, your anything you want to call it, the part of you that's there to really hold you back. Now, what Part X does, it weaponizes parts of your psyche against you. And what I want to share with you is ways to spot and label Part X in its tracks. And that's the first step that we need to make when we're trying to overcome these self-sabotaging thoughts, patterns, behavior. It's starting to see self-sabotage for what it really is. And we might think it's something innocent, such as, looking at our phones. I'm just looking down. So I have got some notes here to guide me, because it's so important that I make sure that you see the symptoms of self-sabotage that you're probably experiencing. Now, what we might see is just as an impulse to check our phone is actually a very, very strong weapon of Part X. So the number one weapon of Part X is to weaponize our attention, to take our attention and fragment it into tiny little pieces. And as Daniel Goleman says in The Attention Revolution, he said the best way to control a man is to take his attention and fracture it into tiny little pieces, so he hasn't got the potency to move forwards. Now think about this. If you have fractured attention, if I take your very strong, powerful attention and I cut it into tiny little pieces and I push it into loads of different directions, you often end up lost and you don't know where to go. And that is Part X at work. So I'm sat here right now. I've just noticed, I've just put my left hand down. I've got my phone on the table, which is not usually there. Is that if I was to be doing my deep work, when I was maybe preparing for this video, and my phone is on my desk, and I get an impulse to check my phone, which we all have. You could probably, if you're watching this, you probably felt that impulse to check your phone. You might have even had it whilst driving or in a conversation with your partner. These crucial moments where our attention is really important. And then you give in to that impulse and you check your phone. What it does, it fractures your attention, it fractures relationships, it removes your focus, and your focus is the most important asset that you have. Now, if you think about this, if there's a part of you which is trying to make your life difficult and stop you from moving forwards, wouldn't it make sense for it to gain control over your attention in moments where you needed to focus? And I realized, like, when I read this first time, I was like, oh my gosh, I really buy into that. I really buy into that impulses are a weapon of Part X, because they rob you of the very thing that is most important in your relationships. Like, think about this. The worst possible time you could be checking your phone is during a conversation with your spouse or your kids. But when do we get the biggest impulse to check our phone? During a conversation with a spouse, or when the kids are there, or when we're driving. I live in Dubai. People are on their phone. They're looking at their phone more than they're looking at the road. Their life is at risk when they do that, but they are given into an impulse to be on their phone. Now, that is why it's such a seductive thing that's going on with Part X, because if I've got something important I need to focus on and I give into that impulse, I've lost the battle with my inner enemy. And the best part about that, it goes under the radar. So that's the first one, impulses. The second one is hopelessness. I can't ever say that word. And then so it's like, what this is, it's confusing a knockback with a knockout. Now, when I on the internet prospecting, sharing about my message, and for example, I post a video and I check it the following day and it hasn't got the viewership count that I want. Now, I'm well trained enough to see that as a knockback. Oh, that's interesting. That's not where I wanted it to be. It's knocked my confidence a little bit, or it's knocked me back about where I thought I would be. Now, here's the problem. Most people confuse a knockback with a complete knockout. And here's how it happens. You go on a dating site, or you perhaps reach out to someone in your contacts and you ask them on a date, and they say, no, I don't want to go. And the pain of experiencing that rejection or that no is so painful, you decide, that the meaning this has is I'm never going to go back into dating. You perhaps pitch your first idea or business deal to a potential client and they say no. And you say, I can't do that ever again. It's so painful. Or you get a day, a week, or a month where selling doesn't go your way. And I've been there. Had weeks where I was selling things to clients and proposing deals and getting nothing but no's, and just getting knockback after knockback after knockback. But the thing that Part X does, the part of you that wants you to give in, the part that doesn't want you to move forwards, to stay the same and safe, the way that it frames that is that's a knockout. You can't recover from this. You'll never recover from this. And this is why it's so important to spot it as that. So impulses is the first one. Hopelessness is the second one. And then what you've got to see that is that you've got to be able to see that as an opportunity to get knocked back, but then get back up. There's actually a word called anti-fragility. And anti-fragility is the ability to see a knockback as something that makes you stronger. And the way it's encapsulated is a wind extinguishes a candle, yet fuels a fire. So somebody who's really duelled with their part X can see these every single knockback that they get actually is making them stronger. But somebody who is a victim to their part X sees and creates a knockback as a knockout. The third way that your self-sabotaging inner enemy will work against you, your part X, is that it will convince you that you don't have enough energy. Now think about this. Now, like if you have experienced anything like I have, I'm a very energetic guy. Now it's 3:00 in the afternoon and I decided I want to come and do this video because I'm looking forward to sharing this information with you. And the way that part X works against you in this instance is it convinces that you haven't got enough within you. You haven't got enough energy. You haven't got enough joie de vivre. And then you have to go externally to get that. You might have to have the second, third, fourth, fifth coffee. Or you just haven't got the energy to get through the day. And I used to have a client, and what happened was he used to close up his shop at 3 p.m. And I remember speaking to him, I said, what is it worth to you to be able to go from 3 till 5:30? And he said, I don't even know, because I've been closing the shop up for the last 2 years, because I have my lunch. I'm so tired after lunch. I just can't carry on with the day. Anyway, he started a training program with me. We worked together. And he said, he knocked me on the shoulder one day and he said, Ben, do you know what? Actually, I can finally answer your question, what it cost me to close the shop between 3 and 5:30. And he said £200,000. And I was like, you're joking me. And it was costing him £200,000 to close the shop every day between those 2 hours, because that was when his clients were doing their buying. He owned a travel company. They organized holidays and bookings and days out. And that's when most people were shopping online to buy their travel. And he wasn't there at that time. So exponential shift. Energy is something that we create every single day. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I want to go for my run because I'm going to create the energy for the day. Going for the run creates the energy. If you think about it, it's quite paradoxical. We think we need the energy to go to the gym. We think we need the energy to go on the stage. We think we need the energy to go and do the thing. But the paradox is doing the thing creates the energy. And remember this is really important. So 3 things so far. Energy, we've got impulses, and we've also got impulses. So energy, you're told that you haven't got the energy, you give into impulses, and you tell yourself that you're in a hopeless state. If you're experiencing those symptoms, your part X is running wild, and it's being the obstacle that's stopping you from going 10x. Okay, we've got a couple more. You'll hold on to negative emotion way longer than you need to. This is resent. This is lack of forgiveness. And this is like where you have somebody in your life and you pay so much negative bandwidth towards them that you think that that's going to somehow give them some sort of, I think it's retribution, like them or you retribution, or maybe I've said that a little bit wrong, but you think that you're going to hurt them by holding on to negative emotion about them. And what you'll find is, if you think about this, when you're in a toxic state, when you're in a blameful, resentful, hateful state, who is experiencing the poison? And I've worked with clients and they've had spouse, they hold on to their negative emotions around their spouse all day, their clients all day, their family all day, their suppliers all day, all these different people. They live in this toxic state, but guess what happens in that toxic state? They don't move forwards. They don't move into the 10x challenge ahead of them. While you're sitting there in this negative, disgusting space, I've been there, where you're hating on someone for way longer than you need to. guess what you're not doing? You're not moving forwards. Because when we're in a growth, beautiful, love, joyous state, that's when we're higher up on the ladder of consciousness. We're moving forwards, and that is going to help us create the state that we need to go 10x. It's why it's so important. So it's really, really important. So they're the four main symptoms. There's around about 8, and you can go so deep on this. But what I wanted to share with you is how to spot those 4. And what we do when we have started to spot and label those self-sabotaging patterns is we start to label them as the thing that's holding us back. And there are a number of tools which I teach in the 10X tribe, and I'll be sure to share some more stuff on this podcast and on this channel about how to fight your inner enemy. So when you are experiencing impulse, what do you do? The tool is called the Black Sun. You actually look inside yourself. That's where you get everything you need. It's one of the things I say to myself is I've got everything I need. I don't need to dip into my outside world. There are ways of thinking, what I called higher level mind management strategies to overcome impulse. Because you absolutely need to. You need a weapon in the fight, because otherwise this is such a demonizing, self-destructive, cannibalizing part of yourself. You need to be able to fight back in the moment. Go into a therapy session a week from now, or go into a coach a week from now doesn't help you when you need it most. And one of the things I keep going on this, as I'm walking through the supermarket and I feel this impulse to go and buy beer, go and get extra chocolate, go and get the things that I want to have that aren't as good for me, I just remind myself I have everything I need. And it helps me live a way that, it helps me move forward so often. It stops me from giving into impulse day after day after day. It's helped me overcome my vices, and I can guarantee it can help you too. So thank you so much for tuning in to hear about self-sabotage and the way to spot it in the impulses, the hopelessness, the energy, the hanging on to negative emotion, and there are way more. So if you want to find out more about self-sabotage, what I first recommend you do is subscribe to this channel and this podcast, because one of the things is that we'll talk about this way more in future videos. The second thing is comment which one is it that you really feel that affects you the most. Is it impulses? Is it energy? Is it hopelessness? Is it hanging on to negative emotions for way longer than you need to? Which is the one that really, really gets you? Thank you so much for watching the video, and we'll see you on the next one.